I'm not going for sub 200 anymore. I'm just going to be like, this is going to be another being a giant dick playthrough where I don't try and win. I just see how big of a jerk I can be. Hey, everybody, this is Soger. I'm here with Comrade Kane, and we're going to be going over Civilization 7.
Hey guys, we're back, and Civ 7 is beautiful, right? So we want to talk about what's known, we want to speculate, and because obviously things are going to change. So we're just going to go through major changes in game mechanics.
The first major change, just looking at it, is that is a much more populated map. It's a lot more interesting than what we've had in the in six. I'm just going to say that already. It's not the barren maps that Civ 6 has.
Yeah, and just the way the city sprawl like that, it looks like
Yeah.
it's going to be it should be a lot of fun to play with
Hmm.
different districts and buildings placed. But let's start with ages, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Let's.
that's a huge change. We have three
Yes.
ages. We have
Hmm.
antiquity, exploration, and modern. They can
Yeah.
be played
Beginning, middle, and end.
separately,
Yeah.
right? But they can be played separately or as a full campaign. As far as I understand, there are like about 150 to 200 turns per age, Soger. So I
Okay.
don't know if you'll be able to finish an age in 75 turns, but everybody has to finish the age, right? It's like every civ. You can't progress to the next stage until
So it,
the
So
rest of
it's
them
like
catch
the
up.
opposite, well, not opposite, but it's sort of like the reverse right now, where the age is dictated by the average.
Hmm.
And once an average of the civs reach a certain age, it moves up. This is everyone has to reach the end.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that that
You
that,
you
that
can't
actually
move
does,
on,
yeah.
and you can't research anything from the next stage. You have like no access to anything from the next stage because there's also some sort of like game systems in place for each age. Like they're going to be different. Maybe the trade is different. Resources are even going to be different from age to age. I mean, some will span all three ages. Some will be very specific to an age. You know.
Well, and that just makes a lot more sense because like the biggest the biggest problem with turn-based games is balance. Early turns always, always, always. There's very few games I can think of where early turns aren't so much more impactful that it's so ridiculous that it's nice to see like this more, let's say, like segregated, sectioned off eras to try and I think this should do a lot more to balance it as you were saying, like, are you going to be able to finish this quicker? Are you going to be able to like manipulate stuff? Um,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Probably.
I'm
Yeah,
sure you'll find a way to exploit things,
yeah.
but.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yes, but it's easier to balance an ancient era
Right, you
instead
have
of
like guide
balancing
rails.
turn 1 through 500.
Yeah, because you put players in this box, right? And
Yes.
you can't get out of it to research future texts, for example, from the next age rather.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to keep going. There is mastery text to, I guess, do in-depth research for the text that you have
So you can
discovered.
still gain an advantage if you're doing
Right.
better than other people, but it's not
That's
like you can get infantry versus swordsmen.
exactly, exactly. And then I guess the faster you go, the more these legacy points you're gonna get, different bonuses and rewards along the way. Like, for example, it says the first time any player reaches this milestone, 5 age progress points are added for all players. So it's like, I don't know if there are any other things along the way, but I feel like the faster you can do it, the better for your
Yeah, so you can still
gameplay.
so, like, right there, you can still sorta game the system by just performing very well and forcing other people to get age progress. So there'll still be, like, a
Yeah, it's like
snowball,
yeah, you're
but it's
dragging the rest of them with you,
yeah.
right? Like
But this is a more contained snowball, it seems like. Oh, like just based off that, like I haven't watched much of anything. All I've learned about Civ 7 is from watching people complain about it online. Uh, and this, when I saw the three ages, I thought this made more sense than anything else I that like you could come up with, because a turn-based game has a beginning, middle, and end. That's all it is. There's the early getting established, the middle focusing on what you're going to win, and then the end where you drive it home. And it's easy to like balance those parts separately. It's much harder to balance that for length of game.
And I think
Um,
that's the whole idea, right? To be
yeah,
that balance is like a cornerstone for Civ 7 because we had such imbalance like starts and civs and whatever else in Civ
yeah,
6 that now even the map, the tile yields for different terrains seem to be very similar. Like desert gets, a food in the production, tundra gets a food in the production, and even grassland or something like that, would get a food in the production. So I don't think you're going to be spending more as much time looking for a perfect starting location. They were trying to get away from the reroll of the map as well.
yeah, and and I can see where that will bother some like purists, but that makes for a more interesting game.
Hmm.
The problem, like once again, the problem with like Civ 6 is we all know what a good start looks like. We know what a great start looks like. We know what a terrible start looks like. You can look at the map instantly and tell what you have, and that that to me is a problem because it locks you into playing the same terrain multiple times. You can't really
Hmm.
have that much of an interesting map if you're trying to do well, because an interesting map is not a good start.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And with these ages, obviously, I mean, separating leaders from civilizations is like a little bit controversial, I guess, for everybody. It
Yeah.
seems like, right? But what the ages do, they also separate civilizations. There is the specific set of civs for each age, and
Hmm.
they bring specific abilities for each age, relevant for that age, for that mechanics that they have or systems that they have in place for gameplay.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean the buildings, the districts evidently get obsolete with each age, but there are systems in place where you can actually prolong the life of them. Like if you reach a golden age, in a specific path, and you get to keep the bonuses for like libraries or amphitheaters, for example. So they put a lot of different things in place where not everything you do, but so many things make sense, and you want to make sure it's almost like you have to play a balanced game, you know,
Yeah.
at
No,
least from this view right now.
yeah, and like I get the not liking keeping the civilization that you picked from the very beginning. I mean, I get that people want to like role play whatever you want. But I always say civilization isn't a realism simulator. We're not trying to do a historic simulation. They're trying to make a strategy game
Hmm.
based around history.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, but for me, the strategy game part of it comes long before the history. I like this makes a lot more sense to balance. Well, like once again, I'm gonna say balance about 1,000 times. But the thing with Civ 6 is you can beat it so fast because it's so ridiculously unbalanced in some ways, and there's no real way to change that. You actually can't like, I've actually, like, thought about it. The only way to change the balance in Civ 6 makes certain victories almost impossible. Like, it would just handicap you too much if you focused on religion and somebody defended against it.
Hmm.
This, it's much easier to go, "Okay, you can start off science, but then transition into this or that."
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and that to me, and I'm sorry, but there's no civilization that has existed since the dawn of time under the same name. Like, I can't think of any. There's some that have been around for a while, but they've gone through name changes. They've gone through different like sections.
I don't know. I mean, Egypt seemed to be lasting, but I get your point though.
Yeah.
It's more as a tongue-in-cheek comment from me, but like I absolutely love that idea. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird that it's leaders versus civilization. You keep the same leader,
Yeah.
but you change civilizations. It almost feels like maybe it would have made more sense to keep the civilization and change leaders. But whatever. To your
I feel
point,
it's actually this. I feel that I feel either way works, and I feel that they pick the leader because the leader is a person, and most people envision themselves as a person, not a civilization.
yeah, yeah, and I think to your point, it's a game, it's a strategy game, and I think whatever they decided must have make more sense. So,
Yes.
um, but also another thing that I read was that the civilization guide that they started online, it says that ages determine the overall size and scope of the playable map, expanding as the player transitions into new ages. And at first, people were saying like, "Oh yeah, because you can't cross the ocean and whatnot." But it doesn't make sense if we're going to have different maps like Pangea and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So map is supposed to change with ages. Size and scope of a playable map. So
Does I wonder if that I wonder if that's an expand let me say this, how am I trying to say it? I wonder if it increases the if you zoom in
mm-hmm.
closer each era, like
Mm-hmm.
where a forest would take up 3 tiles, now
Hmm.
next era it takes up 9 tiles, you know what I'm saying? Or if it just is, like, extra tiles around you, but extra tiles around the perimeter doesn't make sense, so
Well,
I
it says
wonder.
size and scope. So to your
Yeah.
point, there is some kind of a scalability going on
Yeah.
in addition to size. So I don't know, but what I want to say is it's not just your land separated by deep sea tiles that you can cross. I think
Yeah.
there is more to that. Um, and then the other thing that every age, well, not every age, I guess it's the antiquity age and the exploration age, we have a crisis, which seemed to be a very random thing. There are several crises, at Beach said. It could be like an invasion or unrest. So, foreign threat,
Yeah.
internal threat. There could be unrest in your own empire, and there could be like a plague and whatever else. And like for example, I guess I love the idea of the crisis because it gives you like you could be doing so great, right?
Yeah.
And you snowball into something like that. That
Mhm.
snowball effect, I feel like, is reduced. I'm sure there will be something like that in
Yeah, there
seven.
always is.
Right, but they put these flags, I think, in the game in the form of crisis with the purpose of reducing that. So
Yeah.
you have to deal with it. You're gonna lose happiness. You're gonna lose food, whatever that comes with it. But you have to make these decisions and see what works best. And it seems like it lasts for like, if you look at the age timeline, it seems like it lasts for a little while. It's like a quarter of the total age,
Well,
which.
that and that's good. Because the what I'm gonna keep comparing this to Civ 6. The problem with Civ 6 is you're safe. Um,
Mm.
like if you how many times have I said in a game, "Oh, I declared friends with my closest neighbor. I'm now safe for the entire game," because nothing can happen if your immediate neighbor doesn't do it to you. So I wouldn't even say randomized, but events that affect you like that are actually good because it's something that you actually have to address that maybe you can't so much prepare for in advance, and you have to adjust a strategy, which which would be insane because it's a strategy game. Heaven forbid you have to deal with something that you didn't plan or foresee.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
and then there are a bunch of these. There's a concept of these narrative events throughout the game, I guess,
Yeah.
throughout the game sprinkled, where you have to make one or two decisions, and it really shapes in a way how your game progresses. There is certain impact on it, right? And what
Yeah.
it does, these type of things and the choices that we have, between the choices that we have for the leaders and with their attributes and whatnot, these narrative events, the things that the ages come with, different game systems for each age, it could create, and I think that's their goal, to create like as many unique experiences as possible. Like
Yeah.
it will be much harder to have a meta, right? Like in seven, well, at least that's what it seems like to me. To
Well,
you.
and they're like the I just want to say one thing. There will always be a meta,
Mm,
but means this will make it so that different leaders, different civilizations could have a different meta. The problem now, if you look at Civ 6, with very small deviation, every civilization has the exact same meta. Every single one, every single leader, if you want to perform the best in single player, I can basically write you a step-by-step guide how to do
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, there'll probably be an absolute this is the best path because there always is. But the more variety that is given like that, the more likely that yeah, this will be the best, but these other four options are comparable. Like,
yeah,
yeah, this one will outperform it, but you can do almost as good with this. And it makes it more interesting. Even for like a casual player, that's better. Even if you're not trying to speed run, it actually is better if multiple things perform as well uh are almost as well as the best because that means you don't have to do a meta to win. And the problem is when the game gets balanced, it gets balanced for the best strategy usually. They go, "Oh, well, this is working too well. Let's nerf things." And then
right.
that ends up hurting the casual player more in my experience.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't played multiplayer much in six,
Yeah.
but seven seems to, because they had to create a whole bunch of mods, right, for balancing the game
Oh,
out and
yeah.
balancing the civs out. And I think in seven, this wouldn't be as much of an issue, right? To your point.
I would hope, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, because I've been looking into doing some multiplayer,
Hmm.
but like I don't know, it just seemed like the game's 8 years old. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like didn't feel like learning it.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Like
Um,
I'm gonna be honest. By the time I was like, yeah, maybe I'll play some multi. It's 8 years old. No thanks.
so maybe with seven, we'll play
Yeah,
multiplayer. All right. So I guess the next thing I wanted to talk to would be the leaders
yeah,
and civs. I mean, we already mentioned that. I mean, they decoupled. They're separate leaders from civilizations.
yeah.
Controversial, but for both of us, I feel like it's an awesome concept, right?
Well,
Like,
yeah, and one thing I want to say is, um, Firaxis, to my knowledge, has never made a bad game. They've never made a game that was objectively bad. Civilization has always done well. So there's parts of this I do sort of not fully agree with, but there's a lot of games I didn't think I was going to like that just because they did the idea right, were incredibly fun. And that's the thing that sort of gets me is they have a track record, in my opinion, that they're good at taking ideas and making them work. And I think these ideas are worth exploring, like gameplay wise.
yeah, I absolutely agree. You have to be open to new concepts anyway,
Yeah,
And we're not gonna talk about how this game is similar to other games in place and whatever else. We're not interested in that. We want to discuss Civ 7,
yeah,
And I guess one of the things that I would want to start with is just how different leaders, what kind of set of abilities they have.
yeah.
Um, because at the start you're gonna have to choose a leader,
Hmm.
and it seems like their abilities are pretty. It's like they have these traits, like you see. I mean, it says economic and militaristic,
Yeah,
and I don't know. These things are gonna change with the game and whatnot. But this is kind of starts. That's where you start to try and make a decision, and I feel like you can pick any leader because their initial abilities will be then enhanced with every age through
Yeah.
attributes, right? So in the antiquity age where you just want to grow your empire and set up basically for the next stage, any leader could work well, you know?
Yeah. I'm looking at this, and like, it's the right kind of bonuses for the leaders, because they're simplistic, or not simplistic, but they're like,
They're pretty straightforward. No, you're
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
right.
there's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Because they're
it's
gonna complicate them as you
yeah.
go, right? You start with something really basic.
But for the thing that's gonna carry you through the whole game, you don't want it to be something like Civ 6 had a lot of abilities tied to leaders that were so, like, strong, where these are much more straightforward. Like,
Yeah. And in order to enhance them, right, you're
mhm,
gonna have to earn these points for the attributes to enhance your leader abilities. And you have this wide choice. So in addition to like the victory types like cultural, economic, militaristic, and scientific, they also have the diplomatic and expansionist attribute points,
mhm.
which will, just provide either more, some bonuses towards settler production or wherever else. I mean, you can see it on the screen. There are all kind of different things. Like we're looking at militaristic, and then there's a discount for levying the units, which used to be a trait for a specific civilization in
Yeah.
six. Now anybody can have it.
Well, and yeah, this is a lot better. Like, this is the first time I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. I haven't
Hmm.
watched any of these videos, but this is a lot better. It's a lot better to give like a simplistic, get one extra culture per city. That's your leader bonus, and have all the other things tied to a tree. Because once again, this goes back to balance. If
Hmm.
every civil
Exactly.
or if every player has the ability to access those more unique, abilities like the levying one, that's better for balance, because that's more impactful.
Yeah, and it seems like there is a shift. If before we were relying on government policies a lot, right, to
Yeah.
enhance the gameplay in the sense efficiency of it,
Mhm.
now it's sprinkled all over the place. The ages have some bonuses, leaders have some bonuses, and then you have governments in addition to that. So there are just a lot of moving parts. It seems like, well, at least from the first look.
I mean,
Um,
and just looking at this, there's gonna be a whole lot more replayability
mhm.
where I mean, Civilization is, like, infinitely replayable, but there'll be a lot more replayability where you can actually do different things, like different strategies. Because right now you can replay the same few strategies, unless you pick a very unique leader in Civ 6. This, it looks like you could, like, play the same leader, I don't know, 10 times and enact a
Mhm.
different strategy each
Mhm.
time. Like,
Exactly.
just looking at a few of these screens.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that was the goal for them,
Yeah.
And you can't it'll be really hard to find the best quote unquote path, right? Because
Yeah.
there's going to be so many, and there are different ways of earning the, points and enhancements um, through different technologies or like random events and whatnot. So, and then we have civilizations that are a set
I
of
like the leader
civilizations.
graphics, I'm just gonna say that. They did a good job on
Oh
that.
yeah, people bitched a lot about how Augustus looks, but like if you look at other ones, you can tell that um the quality is much higher for
Yeah.
other ones because they're still working on the game. We just need to give it. I mean, look at this guy. I don't know, but
I don't think that's not that bad. He looks like Ben Stiller's character in Tropic Thunder right there.
no, it's it's hilarious. But once you pick a leader, then you go ahead and pick a civilization. And it's funny that they have different choices. There will be a historical choice, as like in this case, if you play in as Hatshepsut, the Egyptian
I'm glad
leader.
that you're finally in my section of not being able to pronounce any of this because you haven't had a chance to practice. That makes me feel good. Yeah.
So somebody made a comment on Facebook about her name, and the guy came up with like an AI image, I guess, of a sheep in a hat in a suit. So, hat sheep suit. There you go. That's how
Oh,
you
there we
do.
go. Perfect.
Yeah. So the hat sheep suit has different choices, right? So
Yeah.
historical choice, and I don't know what if historical choice aligns better with the leader in certain ways, right? Like, but
Mhm.
that's the choice you have, and you have like a military unit and Axum. I like that there's a trade ship, meaning that I guess the trade systems are going to be completely reworked. You know, we relied on
Which is
trade
good.
routes so much, right?
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because we used to have trade units, right? Like
Mhm.
before, that you actually had to send somewhere, like tile by tile, in previous versions of Civilization. Um, but I feel like it's awesome. I
Yeah,
really like
I like the idea of actually needing like units for trade,
it.
not just getting a trader. I don't want it to be you move it tile by tile. I hope you can pick the route.
Right.
Like I hope that you can like either draw it or, like adjust it a little bit more than Civ 6. But I do like the idea of needing a trade ship and like stuff like that. Like envisioning actually needing to have a trade ship in your harbor to send your trade unit out, to me just adds a little bit more depth.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then these units, right, that they are responsible for, trade,
Yeah,
like this unique unit, for example, or maybe another one would be immune to plundering, for example, or something like that. It will
yeah,
make make it more impactful. Those type of things. Um, every civilization is also assigned, like, has an associated wonder. Like if Axum has this great steel, and right now it says plus 30 production. These things could change, but what I noticed that even with the civilization's guide, every single one of them had some civics tree, some abilities, unique units, unique infrastructure, and also associated wonder, whether they build it faster or it gives them like bigger bonuses, for that specific civ. So like if we used to build wonders and you get the same bonuses no matter who builds it now, and the same speed, now construction speed now is going to be a little bit different.
yeah. That which as long as everyone has like equal access. Well, I guess
Right. Right.
yeah, like
I mean, they
Like, as
could
long
they
as
could
everyone has the ability to build the pyramids, I don't care if somebody has a bonus to the pyramids, if that's part of their civilization. That like, because it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you might get access to pyramids later than,
Yeah,
let's say, for the sake of an argument, Egypt, but you still get access to them.
yeah,
Um,
and it also depends on, and also that's just basing it off of historically how wonders have been in game.
hmm
If the wonders are more which, like, I guess, is there any information on the wonders, what they provide yet? Has there
Not
been
really.
any?
No.
Okay, because if they were more like how they've simplified the leader bonuses to be more universally impactful, but not like adding a feature, let's say, if
hmm
the wonders are more like adds 10% culture, stuff like
Right.
that, more generalized, then I don't care what they do like which I feel that they've moved much more towards uh giving those general bonuses from what I've seen, and then you have to unlock the more feature driven bonuses, which is the correct way to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they did that approach with wonders, then I don't even care if they lock people out of wonders.
Oh yeah, and so every civilization comes with its own culture. I guess civics tree that gives them additional bonuses. Like in this case, like there's a now we have settlement limit, right? A city limit.
Yeah.
There's a cap of how
So
many
I
you
can't
can.
just make 1,000 trash cities.
I maybe
What
you
the
can,
heck?
maybe you can, as long as as long as you enhance that, raise that cap through different things, right? We just got to figure
Well, I
out which
mean,
ones.
what's Russia gonna do if you can't make 32 like two population cities with a holy site? Well, come on. How's
Yeah.
that even fair?
Well, all the strategy is out the window, right? Like, so
Well,
eventually we're gonna figure it out.
oh,
Eventually we're
okay.
gonna see, what works best. Um, but like in this case, you can see that one of these civics, right, riches of the Duat or whatever, Twat, it gives another 15% towards constructing wonders. As a civilization, Egypt already gets
Mhm.
extra production towards wonders. So there's like a you can probably eventually figure out a path of like being able to build wonders at 100% production rate or something, or 200% for that matter. And it can apply for other things as well, whether it's combat or culture or gold, you know what I mean? So it'll be a question of like whether you want to play a balanced game or if you want to focus on something that
Yeah.
will give you that advantage or edge, right? And to your point, there could be like so many options.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is this also lends from what I can see and just reading these abilities, this very much lends to, oh, we came up with an idea. All we have to do is add another box on the tree, code it in, and boom, we just
Hmm.
added something with a patch.
Yeah.
Because seeing as all these like once again, like the more feature driven, the more like levying city states at a reduced cost. All that stuff being unlockable means that if something comes up where they're like, "Oh, we should have done
Uh
this,"
huh. Uh huh.
they can add that, where that hasn't been an option before in any civilization game because everything was tied so directly to a leader or a civilization that to change something like that was okay, now we have to rebalance everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. The flexibility that they set up for themselves, right? And I guess as a game designers, and you have to sell that game through
Yeah.
like additional DLCs and whatnot, and I think
Mhm.
that's where they're building up the foundation to be able to do that, and it'll be
Yeah.
so much easier, right, to add more civilizations and leaders, and like you said, with different all kind of abilities throughout the game. It's just going to make it easier for them. But here is an example of like the list of abilities for a civilization. It just seems very very long, right? Like there are so many
Oh
things
my
here.
god.
You
Yeah.
start with a small set for a leader, and then you
Yeah.
enhance it. But then you pick a civilization. You're like, holy crap! There's a lot of stuff here, you know. And I think most of it, there's a giant chunk is in civics. They unlock
Yeah.
different things. But look at that Jaddy civilian unit, right? Like I love that. It's kind
Mhm.
of cool. It's brings you back to like a great person from Civ 6, but they
Yeah,
can do so many different things. It's kind of cool.
it looks very similar to Simon Bolivar's unique great general, and where you can get one, but
Ah,
I don't know if
yeah.
it has a randomized ability because
Yeah,
it
yeah,
says
yeah. Okay.
it can
It's
have.
random. It's random. It's totally random.
Yeah, and that like to me that's good. Like, well, once again, there should like there should be a lot more randomness because
Yeah.
there's no such thing in life as like a sure thing. Like, and it always bothered me when, or it still does. It bothers me when on turn one I can tell you what I'm be doing on turn 120 because I know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen.
Uh,
And there's very little deviation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just increases the playability of the
Yeah.
game, right? But speaking of wonders, Sagar, if you look at the bottom, there's pyramids, and it actually does give you an idea
Oh,
of
does
what
it?
kind of bonuses it
Adds
provides. It's very ambiguous, you know.
yeah,
Increases
adds gold
gold.
and that adds gold, increases gold in production on minor navigational rivers. Uh, yeah, that's this is what
And
Wonder should be doing.
see, and it
Um,
stacks like this navigable river tiles. The
yeah,
civilization itself has, like, if you look at the top of it, the unique ability. It's
has
increased
extra
production.
production. Yep,
You see,
on
it
large.
it ties it together. It would make sense for them to build pyramids. It might not make sense for somebody else to build
Yeah,
pyramids.
and this is like when we were just talking a few minutes ago, this is actually perfect. I don't care if I'm locked out of this. This doesn't seem I mean, I don't know. I've never played the game, but this doesn't seem like adds gold, increases gold and
Right,
production on rivers.
right.
Okay, yeah, that's big, but it's not like every builder that you get gets an extra charge or
Exactly. It's not
like
global effect yet, at least, right? We
yeah,
don't
I
see that
mean,
global effect where the Oracle of Pyramids in six were like essential. I want to get it
yeah,
because God forbid
where
we.
like if you got the Apadana, you literally had a source of envoys that no one could compete with.
Yeah. And this is an example of a Songhai civilization that Egypt would, not Egypt, well, yeah, Egypt would transition to an exploration age. And you can see that Songhai is economic, militaristic, but now there is like more stress on trade, maybe,
Hmm.
in trade routes, because now age of exploration, right? You're going to meet more civs, you're going to go across, you're going to get access to new
Import
resources.
resources.
Right, right. So you can see that there are certain things here, if you read through unique units and buildings, that talk exactly to that. Whether it's resources, slot resources would be a whole other thing too. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. They're going to have different resources. There are caps, or like you can only assign so many resources to a town and whatnot. We can talk later, but there are a lot of different things in place that are going to be interesting to play.
Like just looking at this is yeah, this is specialized in a very like I don't want to sound like overwhelmingly positive, but this is specialized in a very good way for some just opinion of somebody who's never played it, but just reading it, this makes sense to me. Like looking at it, like okay, this all stacks and is showing me sort of the route I like if I'm playing a
Yeah.
trade based strategy. Okay, I see how this is working out. This is the civilization I want to be.
Yeah, it just makes I feel like in six, sometimes the unique units were just there, and they
Yeah,
were useless, or buildings and whatnot. For the most part, they were okay. But so far, and these things could be temporary, right? Subject to
yeah,
change, work in progress. But the idea of like tying it together and making almost every civ good, to your point, like no matter what path, no matter what civ you choose, you can still win with
yeah.
the same maybe or similar chance for success as another one. I
Hmm.
think it definitely, it's a big change. And then we have different leaders, right? Like, and this is an example of Shoni, so it's another exploration civ. And the one thing I wanted to point out here, they're like, for example, on that civic tree with the red arrow, you can support other leaders' wars multiple times instead of once. There will be things like that. So if you wanted to play a more leaning towards diplomacy and manipulating the world affairs and whatnot, you would tend to go with something like that, for
I'll
sure.
tell you what, if you can play sort of like the guy who just sits back and manipulates the world through diplomacy, I think I just found my sieve. Like I don't want to get my hands dirty.
Yeah,
I just want to convince everyone else to kill each other. That would be great. Like
exactly. Leaving some troops, and then
like
pit
like
them against
uh,
each other, and
if
boom, we
there's
win.
like all I'm gonna say is this isn't gonna surprise anyone, but if there's a diplomacy trade civ, boom, That's mine right there. So wait, I don't have to fight the wars. I can just give them money. All right, let's do it.
Well, speaking of diplomacy, right? So that's a newer. I think they revamped the whole system here because now
Yeah.
you have to earn a new currency. It's called influence, and that influence, as you can see on that screen, will be spent to interact with major or minor powers.
Hmm.
So you can't just have an agreement without paying some kind of influence, without paying the cost for it. Like if before in Civ 6 we were able to do open borders and immediately basically or pay like very little gold to
Well,
get
yeah.
borders open. Now you have to actually worry about how do I earn influence? How do I distribute influence, right? Like because look at the choices in this screen and I don't know exactly what they mean, but there's cultural exchange. Maybe you're getting some culture, right?
Ooh,
There's
that is
open
one hundred
markets.
percent
There's
what it looks like.
right. The open markets is probably something about gold, right?
Yep.
So, and then your influence is gone. Now you have to wait to earn it somehow. Maybe there are policies and whatever else, right? That helps you do that. And it's just so many decision trees, right? Like it's like everything is interconnected in a much better way, you know?
Oh,
And then
thank
look
goodness.
what
Surprise
happens.
wars are zero influence.
But
Perfect.
look, read through it though. They will gain 150 influence if you do this. Meaning,
Ooh.
you know what I mean? That's a penalty for you because they're gonna use
So
that influence,
influence is sort of like not really, but sort of like grievances in the
sort
way
of, but
that
makes
you that like being manipulative could actually come back and bite you.
exactly, exactly. And I mean, I love this, right? Like
Yeah.
so, exploit. I think they try to cut down on possible exploits. I'm sure there will be plenty, but this is kind of cool. And diplomacy was always one of those things where it's done wrong, with the
Oh
World
yeah.
Congress bullshit and whatnot. I think there's a huge potential here that there's an actual currency, that you
Well,
can
yeah.
use.
Well, World Congress
And
was laughable. And diplomacy for somebody who uses it as much as I do. The
mhm.
reason I use it as much as I do is there's no negative for using it.
There are no
Like
consequences either,
yeah,
really.
like it's 100% bonus. So if you're not using it, you're just not you're just choosing to perform worse. And once again, as somebody who uses it, that should be fixed. It shouldn't be that easy. Like this is much better. You should have there should always be an exchange where if you do an action, it should lock you out of other actions. And
Yeah,
the currency does that. If you are being friendly with Egypt, you don't have the currency or time to invest in a friendship with the Shoshone.
e-
That makes sense.
exactly, exactly. And another example here, if you read through that little box, it says initial war support, right? And that war support in diplomacy will provide you bonuses or penalties.
Hmm.
And look, for the surprise war, you get 0, but they start with 3. And that means that every support, I don't know what to call it, but every support, let's call it, will maybe reduce your combat strength against them or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just such a huge punishment for a surprise war as an example in this, that I think it's awesome. Oh, by the way, maybe we can see what are the potential, like for example, cultural exchange, right? If you
Yeah.
read through it, oh, so yeah, so you get some culture. Both leaders get culture. You get culture, and
Oh, that's perfect.
and there is a different way to accept deals too, Soger. Like if you accept it, you get that much reward. But if you
Mhm.
support it, meaning if you want to spend extra influence on that deal, then you get more reward for it. You know what I mean? So they
Yeah.
have that in place as well. So it's kind of cool that there are different little details that make you think and make decisions because you'd be more it's not as easy now within 7, it feels like, to just spend your currency, you
Yeah.
have to give it more thought.
Hmm. Which is good. It adds for it adds once again. I'm going to say it adds for a lot more strategy. If like, and this always frustrates me when people want every option available to them. That leads to no strategy.
Hmm.
Like strategy
Exactly.
comes about by what you can't do, not what you can do. If everything locks you out of something, that makes it more of an interesting game. Now I get, there's people who just want to click buttons and not in a mean way, but there's just people who want to click buttons and get to the end the way they want. And I have no problem with that. But if you're like looking for like an actual strategy game, the things you can't do is what's important. If by declaring a surprise war, which gives you the huge map bonus, like you're and prepare for the war, but they get the huge like world support bonus where other civilizations realistically so in both a strategy aspect and a real world aspect are gonna be like, hey, this person's getting a huge advantage. We don't want them to get that advantage. Like that's how players would play a board game. Like, that's how
Exactly.
real life works.
Exactly. Strategy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And look at this example, for example. Now you
Mhm.
have sanctions, right?
Yeah.
You can hinder their research. Like,
That's amazing. Oh my god. Oh, I'm gonna tell you what, Civ
look at that.
7.
Look at that. You hinder their agriculture in another leader's settlement. So they can't even, you reduce their growth.
I'm
Like,
not going for sub 200 anymore. I'm just gonna be like, this is gonna be another being a giant dick playthrough where I don't try and win. I just see how big of a jerk I can be.
exactly. I mean, that would be so awesome to see, though. I mean, I'd
But
love to.
that But that looks like what Spies should have been in 6. Like,
Hmm.
that's what Spies should have been. Um, I hope that it doesn't have a ridiculous turn count on it where it takes so long to set up, but the ability to, like, hinder other people's, growth at a cost is what Spies should have been, and they just didn't really pan out in Civ 6. But just seeing that on the diplomatic screen, I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, it doesn't say how long those things last. I'm sure there's like some kind of oh, last for 10 turns. There you go.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you can keep doing it, right?
Yeah, well, and
But
and
you
and it's
spend your influence. Every
yeah,
single thing you have to spend your influence on.
that's all I'm spending my influence on.
But this is an example of like how you can influence the war through the support
Mhm.
options. So it will cause war weariness and will reduce production and combat strength of your opponent. You know what I mean? And they start with three of those for the surprise war, for example.
Yeah,
So that's a serious serious risk starting a
yeah.
surprise war if you're not prepared.
Well, and that there should and that's like what I'm saying. There should be a negative for being um
A
an
dick.
aggressive player of that fashion.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and you can support the war between other factions. Like it's not necessarily that you can only influence your own war, you can influence other wars like in this example.
Yeah, so you can be like you can do proxy wars. That's great.
Proxy wars. There you go. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, now we're definitely gonna have to do the like when it becomes available. We'll definitely have to do the Russia versus America game again.
Of
Like, come
course.
on.
All right. What the other thing that I wanted to mention? So there is a diplomacy with the minor parties, right? So
Yeah.
barbs are essentially gone, and what everyone is talking about is that the barbs, the city states, and barb clans, I guess, from Civ 6 are mashed together into these minor powers, let's say.
Mhm.
And it seems like they come in two different types, friendly and hostile when you meet them.
Yeah.
The friendly one, obviously, you can befriend and whatever else, and there is a path to like suzerainty, and then there are suzerain bonuses and blah blah blah. Hostile powers you can take over and whatnot. So there are a bunch of different options, but as you can see, again, influence is a currency is required to do that.
Yeah, so once again, like I said, it's better because you can't do everything, which is nice. If you're playing a city-state focused game, you're spending your diplomatic pressure on them, not on your other civilizations. Um,
Exactly. And you can influence these powers, right? Like if you used to like levy troops from a city
yeah,
state right next to somebody's borders, you can do the same thing here, by befriending them, making
mhm.
them your ally and whatever else, maybe even annex their city somehow and just hindering other players' progress.
Yeah, I'm really liking the changes to diplomacy in city-states. Just I like that. Once again, I like that you actually have to make choices. Like I like in like this is once again just based off video and screenshot and stuff,
Hmm.
but there's so few impactful choices in Civ 6 that it's nice to see that even if it's very minor, that making one choice this will at least stop you from doing being Caesarian of a bunch of city states will at least stop you from being friendly with other civilizations for a few turns, if nothing else.
And they're going to be, this currency of influence, it's going to be inflated, as you go progress through the game. So
Yeah.
things are not going to cost the same. If you befriended the city state in antiquity for this amount, then in exploration age, it will be completely different. Now, maybe it varies between the minor powers.
Mhm.
So, and the
I
next thing I want to, well, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I really just like the visuals. They're very good.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and the video doesn't do it justice, right? Because it's
Yeah.
reformatted multiple times, re-recorded. So I'm sure when you actually play the game, it's just so good. The next thing I want to talk about is commanders. So, I mean, that's a new thing that they came up with. It seems like it's similar to some other games, whatever else, but what it is commander evidently is a civilian unit. So it's like a great
Mhm.
general, let's say, right?
Yeah.
The all of your units, they still work the same. They still occupy a tile. Combat is very similar. But units lose promotions. There are no promotions for units anymore. The promotions are tied to an army commander, and they call this commendation points. So if your units are adjacent to the commander, they get all these, different promotions, whether it's
Mhm.
like, and you can see there is a bastion, like, which is the defensive bonuses, right? Or promotions, assault is attacking. But then you have these other ones,
Yeah, it
logistics,
looks like
maneuver.
zeal is like a pure like a
Yeah,
domestic ability. It's not
during
even attacking.
peacetime, right? Like
Yeah.
if it used to be like you get like an amenity, right, in Civ
Yeah.
6 for stationing a unit. So like these things are so different, right? Like I mean, if
Mhm.
you look at the recruitment, for example, right, that increases production if you station in a district, um, or regiments. It's faster reinforcement. And what the guys were talking about online, it's something like you're in the battlefield and you want to get a new unit faster to the battlefield. You can use that with that promotion. Somehow, that unit is just going to spend less turns getting there.
Oh, wow, alright, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. No, I
It's
I really like that.
so they were saying like how your target on the battlefield will be to snipe out the commander somehow. But if they're civilian units, right, you can't kill them. You have to like I don't know. But so what do they do here, right? Like so there is an ability now for the commander if you have a bunch of units and you don't
Mhm.
want to move them one by one, what you can do is gather them adjacent units onto like one stack.
M'kay.
and then you just move it around just for better, more efficient gameplay. And now
Well, that's
your whole thing moves together as an army. And
so
then
so there's
once you go reach the battlefield, right? Then you
mhm.
move it to the front and deploy units, and they just like unfold on the tiles around it like that.
That like I forget which game I was playing recently, and that's literally what I asked for. I was like, I wish I could just gather all of my units and click on the map, go over here in the like order you're in right now, and let me know when you get there.
Yeah,
Because like this is so like that alone is gonna make like domination games far less tedious. Oh, it's like, it literally is just tedium, moving
exactly,
units, and
exactly.
this is, like, way, way better because, like, when you're moving across a long field like that, it's not even like because that's not even, like, really gameplay, that's just filler. You're moving all those units, and, like, they address that very well just looking at that.
Well, you know what? Speaking of moving units and tediousness, they got rid of builders.
Well, that's good.
They got rid of builders because we didn't have builders in like earlier versions of Civ, I believe. And what you do now is you just expand. Your city grows borders through growth, through
Mhm.
food growth rather than culture, right?
Yeah.
So as your city grows, you just buy those tiles and you expand and you improve them right away with different things, whether it's a district that changed a little bit. Now you have like these urban districts and rural districts, however they work, which makes it cool. And then now there is a separation between like cities and towns. And the
Mhm.
difference is that your cities are very few and far between, evidently. Like you start with a city that can build districts, that can build buildings and whatever else. But your next settlement is not a city. It'll be
Mhm.
like a feeder town to yours. It's like a village, right? Feeding the
Yeah.
town with food, basically, and resources. You basically would set up these settlements and towns to gain access to the resources, to be able to trade, I guess, and also feed your cities to grow so that they can get I guess more gold and more tiles to be used for the districts. At some
Wait.
point, you can convert your towns and settlements to cities, but there's this thing about like, okay, what is the what is the breaking point? Like, how many cities do you want? How many towns should there
Yeah.
be? You know what I mean?
So wait, you're telling me I can't settle on my neighbor's border, chop out all the rice tiles, and
No
have the biggest
chopping.
city yeah, have the biggest city in game in a two-turn turnaround just because I had 4 builders there and a bunch of growth chops?
Exactly. That's that's gone.
That alright, this is
But you
stupid. Now all
can't
of a sudden I'm off all of a
you
sudden I
can't
don't agree with
chop and
this.
you can't chop. So now all of the features, map features are there forever. You can't do anything. I mean, if there are woods, you have to put a lumber mill or something like that.
Mm.
But with age and with tech advances, you can replace things. And whether they carry the bonuses and rewards, I don't know for sure. But I mean, I guess it's one of those things we're gonna have to find out.
Well, that like and that like that's good for once again for a turn-based strategy game. That's good because chopping really effective, but it, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it does not at
Like
all.
not to trash on exactly how I play, but it doesn't make sense. From a gameplay perspective, it's fun and unique, but like it's turn-based strategy game. It works, but yeah, you shouldn't be able to move a builder unit like 3 times and like have the biggest city in the game or finish a wonder instantly and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I'm sure we'll find some sort of exploits, uh,
Oh yeah,
no
I
matter
mean,
what.
I have done well in almost every game I play. I'm always able to find something, but like, And like I've said before, the problem is once I know something is in game, it's really hard for me to ignore it. Um, this like they are eliminating a lot of things that I do that I'm actually happy might not be a choice.
Mm.
Just because it's hard to do a game where you don't chop. It's
Yeah,
like not because it makes the game infinitely harder, but just because, well, I could just chop and finish this market right now, or I could wait 15 turns.
right.
Oh, okay. Well, the part of my brain that understands I could chop this forest and have it right now is gonna yell at me for the next 14 turns.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, like,
Yeah, I mean, we found those like it's like cutting corners and getting, things done faster, rushing through the game almost, I
yeah,
hope it changes here. And like the resources are also different. I mean, we have bonus and luxury resources, but if you look at the screen, dates is a let's call it a luxury. There's no division in that, I don't think.
yeah,
But what it provides now is you can see it provides happiness, for example. Different resources provide different things. It could be culture,
mhm,
in a percentage, amount, or it could be like happiness, or it could be science, things like that. Because amenities are replaced now by happiness, and that happiness can come from all kind of different things, including resources. Now, tribal villages. So he just unlocked tribal village, and what do we see? We have a choice. We can get some gold, or we can get some, I don't know, happiness, I guess. There are different choices now for tribal villages, as opposed to what we used to have. Um, you know,
3 relics.
well, yeah, yeah, random, but there was only one thing you can get at a time,
Yeah.
at
And
least.
I'm all for choosing your reward like this. That's much better. Um, and I hope that they're more balanced. Let's say, like once again, I said I was going to say it 1,000 times. I hope that they balance out the rewards and stuff like this. And this looks, without knowing the game, it looks pretty balanced.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, we can't really judge, right? Like if it's
Yeah.
balanced or not, because you have to play the game, and that's
I mean, I'm
how.
gonna tell you right now where your scout is. You should probably settle a city. I mean, that oasis is gonna provide you fresh water. You got the 2 marble tiles there, the 2 woods to the north. That's gotta be a strong city, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at that thing. But look, you have two resources of marble, right? Each
Yep.
one, I guess, will provide +10 production towards wonders,
Well, there you go.
right?
There's your like, if you're
Here's the
playing
thing, though.
if
Here's the
you
thing.
are
No, but
Egypt, there's your pyramid city.
here's the thing. You can't build a city right away. You can't. You
Mhm.
can't. Whatever you're gonna settle next, your settler settles a settlement, and settlement cannot build stuff. They can like improve resources and whatnot, but they're very limited. So your settlement would not. I don't think it will be able to build a wonder, right, until it's converted to like a city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very different settling strategy now. Like it's almost like you want to get access to all the resources you can, which is normal, but you can't develop those towns quick enough to start building stuff right away?
Yeah, which once again makes sense. It just does.
Yeah, and right now the scout built like a watchtower and opened up
More
a
visibility.
more map, yeah. So you can actually see there is like a village on top there, that he uncovered. So instead of like actually walking the map, you can just lose a turn, but reveal several tiles around you.
Which is nice, because, like like, there's so many times where you're just clearing fog of war,
Yeah.
and it's saving clicks. I say
Yes.
this all the time because I'm counting the tiles right there. You could have actually gotten that visibility in 1 move, but you would have had to move it, and why?
Yeah, and
Like
and you
like,
you're
why?
yeah, and you opening it in a radius, right? So not in
Yeah.
just one direction, but in a couple of different directions.
Yeah,
So
so instead of when you're at the top of your continent, having to, like, just click or go auto explore or whatever. That's they did a very good job. Like just on the few things I'm seeing here, they did a very good job at reducing the number of pointless clicks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which which I cannot stress is the biggest thing that just needs to be reduced in Civilization. Not that it's a bad game, but there's so many times you're just clicking for the sake of clicking.
Yeah, and people are complaining about the UI, how it's dark, how it's, kind of
Yeah,
weird and whatnot, but I feel like it's all still work in progress.
and mods exist. Like,
Yeah, mods exist. I mean, you guys can get over that because looking at the game mechanics and the concepts they're trying to implement, it just makes the game itself better,
yeah,
right? And it's a strategy game, like you said, Sagar. So,
yeah.
as
For me, it's does the base game lend itself to various ways to win? Does it lend to like good variety of strategies? Everything else is secondary because mods can change your UI. Like they can add other things, but if the base game doesn't support like variety and balance, there's not really much you can do.
hmm no, absolutely, yeah. And in this game, in version 7 of Civilization, evidently the roads are built automatically between cities and towns. I
Makes
don't,
sense.
I don't know how they would build a road between civilizations then. Maybe trade merchants still do that.
I
I don't
would
know.
wonder if maybe it says instantly or
Yeah. Yeah.
because my thought would be, would it be number of interactions? Like,
Hmm.
because figure every time that there's diplomatic relations, you have to send the whole envoy, which creates a path.
But it always
Um,
makes sense if there are trade units, right?
yeah.
Or merchants, and you establish a trade route. Maybe that will create. Because I was reading that you can only have one trade route per civilization that you meet.
Well, that's
And
fine.
you're trading the resources in exchange for gold or something like that. But those things can change, I guess.
Heck yeah. Trade meta still exists.
I'm sure it'll be super, super important as usual. You want to interact with other civs.
Well, yeah, and the instant roads is good because the thing I didn't that and a lot of people actually didn't like this, rightfully so, is you can't create roads in Civ 6 where you want until you railroads, and trade routes, being being auto designed means a lot of times if you settle a city on the coast, you have no roads to it for the entirety of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's sort of frustrating. And there's no reason why you should have to make the road after the fact, because if you're looking at it, if you're establishing a settlement, okay, yeah, you've only moved one unit, but the reality is you've brought all the materials over there. People have walked a path, and it doesn't take that many people to walk over landscape to start making a path that gets turned into a trail that gets turned into a road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it
Uh,
like by the time the city or by the time the settlement is formed, the route there should be there already.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
only one thing we haven't talked about is the cap on the number of cities and settlements you can have. There's
yeah,
evidently that cap starts with like three or something like that, and then certain things like tax and policies of different type can increase that cap, but you can't spam cities.
once again, I feel like this is unfair to Russia once they're put in game because the Russian strategy of getting 32 cities is just not going to be there. All right? So how is that fair?
There's got to be a different way. Maybe you know what I noticed that there is no religion mentioned. There is a pantheon actually in antiquity. There's a couple of things that I read. There was a
I did
pantheon.
see one screenshot somebody shared that there was a unique missionary unit.
Ah,
So
yes. So
by
that's
the
the
existence
exploration. Right, right. I was
yeah.
gonna say
So by the
that's
existence of a unique missionary unit, there has to be religion in some fashion.
yeah, and it seems like it's maybe it's split, you know? Maybe it's
Yeah.
split between like in antiquity you can't have religion. Maybe some civs can.
Yeah.
But you get a pantheon. And evidently some civs can have more than one pantheon, depending on their traits. And then you move on to exploration age, and that's maybe when religion kicks in as a mainstream type of thing. I
Yeah.
don't know, but to your point, yes, there is a civilian unit missionary that Shawnee, I think, have. But yeah, but let me know your thoughts. Like, I mean, there are so many things that I basically was trying to walk you through what I know. Obviously, like you mentioned, you haven't seen too many videos about the game, but overall, it seems like it's a step in the right direction, right?
I feel like yes, this is a huge step in the right direction. Once again, if you look at Civ 6 when it was released, Civ 6 Vanilla was very basic and they added on. And that's a reality of games. I don't like I'm not going to argue whether it's right or it's wrong. That's reality. Accept it. Like the game gets released and then content gets added over time. And this is like from what I've seen, they built a really good foundation and a very easy to add onto foundation by everything being in trees
Hmm.
like that,
Yeah.
by all the stuff being in trees. They have made this extremely accessible to add new content to add more onto it. And like you can I don't know if it's in the game, but it would be very easy for them to go, you're only going to play an antiquity era. Like, because people have always wanted, oh, I want to cap out at swordsman and never go any further down the tech tree, but play the whole game. That is something that if it's set up into these different stages, if it's not in the base game, would be an easy thing to add. But no, you can easily add on to where they could make it if it isn't already in game, where you could play with a tech limit cap, with a civic limit cap, you know,
Yeah,
like,
city
and
cap,
that's
resources cap, right? You can cap
yeah,
anything now. It's like,
and that's the thing that I like is that I didn't like I'm very much open-minded to accepting new things. And one of the reasons I haven't seen a lot of videos is I don't really, not that I don't care, but it's not going to affect me. Like I said, I trust Firaxis, I trust Civilization. As long as there isn't anything glaring, I trust them to make a game that is going to be enjoyable. I haven't been disappointed by them until they have disappointed me. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Everything I see in this is really easy to branch off to create more content, and that's what's important. And it's really easy to adjust this stuff without having it be massive changes. And that was the big thing in
mhm.
Civilization 6 when all the civilizations were introduced and then they had to do the massive rework where they changed a bunch of the early civilizations because their bonuses just didn't apply anymore. Um that's why I like to see these leader bonuses that are more
Mhm.
generalized
Mhm.
and universal.
Mhm.
Um because it just makes for a better game in my opinion.
Yeah, and
Um
I love the synergy between the ages.
yes.
The game mechanics for each age is different. That how they synergize with the new civilizations that you have to pick, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like
And it
I
makes that late game. You know how Civilization 6 or any Civ version for that matter, at
yeah.
some point it just gets so mundane, because you won. You're at the late stage of the game or whatever else.
Mhm.
I think this version is gonna
It's doing as
try
much as it
is
can.
gonna try, right? Like
Yes.
I'd be very curious to.
And that's like those crisis things. Like I was saying,
Hmm.
you should never feel 100% safe. And the problem, and this is I haven't played every turn-based game ever in existence, obviously, but in every turn-based game I have played, the problem comes you reach a point where you're safe, where unless you decide to do a very poor choice and put yourself in a bad position, you're going to be okay, and you're going to prosper. And like Crisis, you know, is it gonna be like you go from first place to last place? Probably not, but it might slow you down. It might slow you down enough where second or third place can catch up to you. And this stuff is important. It adds more if you have to plan for stuff.
Yeah, and Soger, I don't know if you heard, but there are navigable rivers. I saw it on the screen.
Yes.
I We haven't talked about it, but it was such a requested feature for the game, right? Like, and I
Yes.
just wonder, like, look at this shot, right? It's a natural wonder, and the navigable river, I think, is like an obstacle or something like that.
Mhm.
So it'll be just cool to see how they implement it in trade wise and just in general. I mean, to your point, every feature they introduce seemed to make sense.
Yeah. And it opens up possibilities, which is the thing.
Possibilities,
Yeah.
possibilities, yeah, and yeah, for gameplay, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point. Like you want to make the game played again and again, and this is a huge
Mhm.
opportunity for them that they seem to. Hopefully, the implementation and execution is, like you always say, is correct.
Yes, because that's the thing, like and I've said this a couple places, and I really mean it. Ideas don't matter. Like, you can talk to anybody, and they can give you a million ideas, that are so great. Here's the thing, implement them. Like,
Exactly.
execute an idea. There's a huge difference between somebody who can give you an idea. I always say people the biggest problem with ideas is you get a lot of "wouldn't this be cool" ideas. And yeah, that would be cool. The very first time you did it would be cool and unique, and then every single time afterwards, it would be the exact same thing as the first time, and it would be old. Implementation of ideas to make them enjoyable is what matters. Like, so I do, and that's where it's like, I trust Firaxis to do this. Uh, this might
Yeah.
be the game.
Yeah,
Like,
you've said
this
that before. In Fraxis, you trust.
yeah,
And I tend to agree. I haven't been. Yeah, there are different versions have different things of
yeah,
Civilization, but I mean, I've been playing it since Civ 1,
yeah,
not as amateur, and I enjoyed every single one of
yeah.
them.
Even non-civ games. I play XCOM all the time, and it's fantastic. I mean, like, they are good at creating, balanced, enjoyable games that work.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, listen, as you watch more videos and more information comes online, we'll keep you guys informed of
Yeah.
our own opinion and, as the game progresses and
We
information
also
progresses.
have to do, part 2 of our buildings tier list. People, have been asking about it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, for sure. For sure. We
so
have to
we have
do
to
that.
do that.
I mean, as soon as possible, Soger. It's up to
Yeah.
you. I have all the time in the world.